So, because you asked, here is North Node on the angles. Over the decades, I've become ever more cautious about discussing the North Node because there's so many different opinions on it. And having gone through most of my life following most other people and following the tenets of things like reincarnation and karma, I've realised now that for me that doesn't quite work. So if I'm going to do anything about the North Node, it can only be born of my experience, which doesn't necessarily follow mainstream astrological thought. So be aware that when I'm discussing the North Node, from my own experience, I'm not seeing the node as anything to do with past lives or future lives. Neither am I seeing it anything to do with this notion of karma, which is essentially just another layer of guilt. Instead, I'm using the North Node in terms of one's purpose, one's mission statement, the reason that one volunteered or chose to come to planet Earth at this time. This implies eternal life and a conscious and volitive choice to be here at this time for a or for some specific purpose or purposes. Having said that, if you're born with the North Node on the angles, there is going to be an element of feelings of ways in which you might consider fated. It's not, but it might feel like it is. The North Node on the ascendant, for example, the North Node rising at the moment of birth is rare. You don't often see it in people's charts. But when it is there, it does imply that over the course of one's life, the person is going to go through some rather unusual, unique and strange experiences involving déjà vu as well as precognitive behaviour, precog and déjà vu. There will be an element of time distortion to an extent at various periods in one's life. It will feel as if you're in the wrong planet at the wrong time, that you're here as an observer or a recorder or something like that. With the North Node on the ascendant, obviously independent upon the nature of the sign that it's in, but it does point more and more over the course of the evolution of one's individual life to the development of one's own individuality. It's all very well being in a relationship and being a parent and being a child and being successful and being a friend, but when it comes to having a conscious individual identity beyond and above any other contact, there's the hard one. That's the difficult one with the North Node on the ascendant. And in the opposite position, the North Node on the descendant. Here we find people who have great difficulty, at least when younger, in maintaining and sustaining long-term relationships. Because the North Node basically shows where you run away from in the first 40 years of life. You've got to get it right on the South Node before you get to the North Node. And if the North Node's on the descendant, you're going to spend much of the first half of life getting the relationship you have with yourself right before you're confident enough to project properly into the outside world. That's why people with North Node on the descendant generally don't settle until the second half of life. But when they do settle, they normally settle for life. Often, surprisingly, with someone with that descendant or stroke North Node sign. North Node on the midheaven. Stinker. It's a really difficult aspect. It's common in the charts of people who have had quite a turbulent home life when young, and as a result who are feeling inconfident and insecure about projecting themselves into the outside world. And their idea of success is basically building their own castle. And yet the North Node on the midheaven is going, no, into the outside world, off you go and be projective and assertive, go and be public and visible, go and dare to be successful. Thing is, they do become like this, but sometimes it's almost begrudging. It helps if they've got a solid home base from the word go. And North Node on the IC. Again, it's all very well being out there in the world and being successful and achieving great things, but if you haven't got roots and foundations and home and security, it isn't going to work. North Node on the IC, where's your real tribe? Where's your real family and community? Where do you belong? There you go, that's my take on North Node on the angles. Catch you later, bye.